Hey heroes, Cap here with a Marvel's Midnight Suns video, and today I want to be talking about all the card effects that you can play in the game, different statuses you can apply, which heroes have specific statuses only dealt for them, and how to play it to your advantage to make sure you take it to all the Hydra units and all of Lilith's demons that she summons. If you go on to enjoy the video and are hyped for Marvel's Midnight Suns to drop on December 2nd, be sure to smash the thumbs up and hit the subscribe for more content coming your way as we get on into it. So to say that there's a lot of effects in Marvel's Midnight Suns might be a bit of an understatement. There's quite a bit you can do, but let's start with some of the basics to it. First off, the cards that reward Strengthen. This is just a simple ability that will increase your offense by 50%. Whatever damage you do, go ahead and add an extra 50% if you are strengthened from an attack. Now, on the other hand, you can also apply Weak to the enemies, and that will decrease their offense that they deal by 50% to you. Helps you out and make sure that you're not taking hits or anything like that. Now if you want a little bit of shield, some block maybe? Block is the way to go. This is going to reduce the damage by an X amount. Block can really be seen with Captain America and his abilities, how he builds block and then he's able to turn it around and utilize that block against Hydra and Lilith's demons to put out more damage. Now, if you want to completely negate your opponent's attacks, Resist is what you're going to be looking for, as this is going to prevent all damage from the next attack that is going to deal damage. This is amazing to completely make you invulnerable for at least one attack. Now, we talked about Captain America having a whole bunch of block, which means he can take the hits without really losing health. And if that's the case, maybe apply some counter on him as well, which means every time that an enemy attacks him that turn, he's going to get the chance to retaliate and attack them back, which could lead to some knockouts, dealing some damage, and taking it to them. Now next up, let's talk about commanding the battlefield. This is how you're going to utilize attacks to push the enemies where you want to go. Starting off with knockback. Simply, you're just going to push the enemy flying in your chosen direction. Certain attacks have this. It shows a little cone, which way to point, and you'll hit them and they'll go flying in that direction. Now if you want to make a little bit more impact with it, forceful is where you're going to go, where not only do you send them flying in your chosen direction, they go extra far with this ability, really putting the oof into that hit. Which, speaking of putting the oof in the hit, critical is where you're going to be, as it's basically a critical hit. You just deal increased damage. Pretty simple and self-explanatory there. Now, certain cards will cost heroism. Some cards are absolutely free. These free cards will cost absolutely nothing to play. Not even a turn, not even a action to utilize. A nice card to use, activate, and get it going onto the field. However, not all cards are free. Some come with a cost. Some cards have exhaust. Once you use this card, it is removed from combat, which means you can't bring it back. You can't replay it. Of course, there's ways around that, but that's more in-game style stuff. Exhaust means you get to use it once and then you're done. Now, final cards are even more powerful than just exhaust cards. After you use a final card, your turn is done. Make sure that this is either the last card in your hand or the last thing you want to do on your turn before you play this kind of card. It's going to deal a whole lot of damage, but it's going to be your last move, so make sure you plan accordingly. Now next up, if the enemy is hitting you hard, there are some ways to stop them. Stun is a beautiful effect that is going to completely negate any action that they're going to do for one turn. Apply stun, leave them right there, so that way when it comes back to you, you can take the beating to them. Now let's say they're starting to apply Weak and Resist on themselves and on you. Cure is what you're going to be wanting to look for, as this is going to remove all negative status. This can be seen on Wolverine in particular. Wolverine having that natural regenerative ability, he's going to have a lot of cards that have Cure that allow him not only to regain health, but remove any negative statuses, so he can't really be affected by a whole lot. Now let's say you're ready to deal out that damage, looking for some certain attacks. Chain is going to be the first one, where multiple targets, or you're going to have multiple attacks on one target, going through and knocking out multiple enemies, or really impacting just one over and over again. And if you choose just one, then you want to make sure that a card also has full combo on it. That's when you attack one enemy with all the attacks will actually increase the damage that you do and help you get that much closer to a knockout on the enemy. Especially get close to that knockout if they have vulnerable on them, as that's going to increase the damage taken by 50%. A great way to really make sure that those attacks are felt and utilized properly. Or you can always make sure that you mark the enemies. Any enemy that's marked, if you beat them with a card, that card will be refunded after played, as long as those enemies are knocked out. Now let's say you want to get in the enemy's heads and you want to kind of taunt them a little bit. Taunt is going to force the enemy to attack that specific hero. They're going to go after them and attack them. Make sure you have block on, counter on, or resist. That way the damage you're bringing in isn't as much, but it still forces the enemies to attack maybe your tank or your heftier heroes rather than your slightly weaker heroes that can't really take a whole lot of hits. Or if you're really good, put Berserk on them, as they're going to attack the nearest unit to them. That does not matter if it's an ally, an enemy, or what you're supposed to be protecting from getting destroyed, or what you're supposed to try to destroy while they're protecting. Berserk is just going to cause them to lash out at whoever and whatever is near them. Now, a couple heroes have some specific statuses to them. The first one being Blade. Blade has this really neat ability, Bleed. He's a daywalker, he's a vampire. He wants to fight and cover the streets in blood. Bleed is the perfect effect for him, as if Bleed is on an enemy, they're going to deal damage at the end of their turn. Now another hero with some really cool abilities, Nico. Nico's probably going to be guaranteed on my squad just because I want to see what she can do. Nico has this effect called Roulette. Roulette means that a random effect will be activated on that card when it's drawn and when it's played, which means you really have no idea what that card's going to do until you play her or until you draw it. Another neat ability with Nico is called Generate. Nico has the ability to create copies of cards in your hand during combat. Now, they won't stay in your deck after the match is over or anything like that. Once the combat's over, those cards will disappear, but it allows you the chance to copy some pretty powerful cards that you have and utilize them over and over again, and not have to worry about that exhaust feature that we were talking about earlier. One of the little ways to get around that. Things to keep in consideration when you're building your decks and building your hero squads to take into battle. Now there's quite a bit to go with all of this, as it's going to take some time to figure out what statuses work well together, what heroes can apply those statuses, and what's the best 3-man squad to take into any mission in Marvel's Midnight Suns. Let me know in the comments below what you think of all these statuses, how excited you are for it, and what your strategy is going to be when it comes and you need to take on Hydra yourself. As always, heroes, stay amazing, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.